Today we're going to talk about the assembly and care of the clarinet. I'd like to begin first by taking the clarinet case, making sure that it's on a flat surface. Then we're going to reach underneath and unhook the latches, and then we open up our clarinet. Now, one of the things you'll notice right away is there's many different parts to the clarinet, and so we have to use great care when we put the clarinet together to make sure that it works properly. The first thing that we're going to do is take out the mouthpiece, and we'll take off the mouthpiece cap, and then we'll also loosen the screws that we have. This is called the ligature, and this is what holds the reed in place. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is that you'll notice a cork. And as you look back in the clarinet case, you'll notice that there's 1, 2, 3 different corks. And those corks are all parts that we need to make sure that we grease before we put the instrument together. And so in your case, you'll find something that looks like this. It's called cork grease. And cork grease is a petroleum-based product. And so what we do is we just put that on the corks, and do this on each one of the corks on your clarinet. And then once we have some of that cork grease on there, then we rub that in with our first and second finger. Make sure that you get that on each of the different corks on your clarinet. And this will help when you put the clarinet together so that it slides together easily. Make sure also that you wipe off any type of cork grease that you have left on your hands. Again, because this will stain. And again, this is the petroleum-based product. Chapstick, that kind of comes in the same type of container, that's a paraffin-based product. And that's something that, again, we use the paraffin-based product on our lips. We use cork grease when we're putting the corks together. Now, we reach into our case, and we take out this small section. We call this the barrel. And we go to twist the barrel on. One section goes on very tightly, and this one is very loose. So we want to make sure that we find the section that works a little bit firmer there, and we just twist that right on to the mouthpiece. Now, as you look at the mouthpiece, what you'll do is you'll notice that we have a tip at one side, and then there's a flat section right here on the mouthpiece, and that flat section is the part that the reed will lay on, and we call that the table. That's called the table of the mouthpiece. Now, if you look into your case once again, you will notice one of the pieces here has 2 corks on either side, and that's the next section that we're going to take out of our clarinet case. Most of your clarinets will have a name plate or a brand name on your instrument. This is the section that also has, many times, this set of keys right here underneath the nameplate. If you turn the clarinet around, you'll notice that there are just 2 items on the back side of the clarinet. There's a single hole here, and then the register key. We're going to go to that section that has that long register key, and that cork right at the top of the register key is the cork that fits into the barrel. So we turn very slightly back and forth, and then what we do is we line up this long key, this register key, with the flat part or the table of our mouthpiece. Then we have our first 3 pieces, the mouthpiece, the barrel, and the upper section together properly. The next section, and if you remember way in the beginning here, we took off the ligature. The ligature fits over the pointed part of our mouthpiece, and the screws that you see on the ligature fit on the flat part of the table of the mouthpiece. Now, it can go 2 ways. If we go to set it on like this, we'll find that it only goes down so far. And then we can reverse it again, and where it's a little larger on the bottom, and then we'll find that it fits down all the way. And this is the correct section, so that it fits all the way down the mouthpiece. Then we'll loosen the ligature screws, and then in our case, we'll take out our reed. Now, our reed is a very, very important part of a clarinet sound, and reeds are they're held in cases. So we very gently pull out the reed and put the case down, and then take a look at the reed. Hold the reed up to a light, and what you will notice is it's very thin right at the tip, very light colored. And you'll also notice that the top is very, very smooth. It's very important when you work with the reed that you never push the reed down from the top. So always keep your fingers away from the top of the reed, again, because we don't want any chips or cracks to develop in the reed. If they do, then it will directly impact the quality of the sound, and then it's time to throw the reed away and get another reed. On the back of the reed, you'll notice a flat section. This flat section also has writing on the back. And what we want to do is make sure that when we purchase reeds for beginning students, we get the number 2 strength. So when you order reeds and buy reeds, make sure you get the number 2 strength. Now, in order to make the reed respond and play and vibrate properly, we need to moisten the reed slightly. So we're going to set the reed with the tip of the reed in our mouth. Now, here's a very important part of our clarinet and a very important part of the process. We slightly take this ligature and slide it up on the table. Then we take the flat part of our reed and we slide that down onto the table of our mouthpiece. And then once we've slid it down on the table of the mouthpiece, then we slide the ligature down over that reed. Now, there are 2 very important things we have to check to get it aligned properly. At the base of the mouthpiece is a little part of the table. We want to make sure that the reed is centered on that section. And once that's centered, then what we want to do is we'll turn the mouthpiece around and we slide the reed up so we see just a little bit of reed showing on the back. So again, we'll check those 2 positions to make sure that they haven't moved. The flat part of the table and the bottom part of the reed are centered, and there's just a slight amount of reed showing. And again, use great care that you don't push the reed from the top, because that could cause the reed to break. Once that's in position, then we tighten the ligature screws in place. The other section we want to make sure is that the ligature is below where the slope of the mouthpiece is. And again, that will hold the correct amount of reed on our mouthpiece. Now, we have the other main section of the clarinet that has a number of keys on it. We're going to take that out of our case. And if we look at the top part that's already assembled, you'll see 3 different holes here, rings. We have a way to connect the top section with the bottom section, and that's by what we call a bridge. And by pressing this hole right here, pressing that down, that lifts up the bridge. And we want to make sure that the bridge is lifted up when we put the 2 pieces together. On the back of the clarinet, and this is the part that has no keys on the back, you will notice a thumb rest. That thumb rest is going to be lined up with the hole on the back and our long octave key and our reed. So we press down this key to lift up the bridge, and then we very gently slide that together. And then line up the thumb rest, the hole, our octave key, and our reed. The last item that we put together is the bell. The bell is just twisted onto the instrument like this. And now our clarinet is assembled. Our mouthpiece, our barrel, our upper section, lower section, and bell. Now it's time to produce a sound on the clarinet. And so what we will do is talk just a little bit about hand position. We're going to take our left hand, and our left hand is always the top hand of the clarinet. We take our left thumb and cover the back hole. Then we go to the first finger on the first hole, second finger on the second hole or ring, and then our third finger here. Our right thumb we put underneath the thumb rest, and we have 3 holes with our first finger, second finger, and third finger. Now, making a sound on the clarinet many times can be a real challenge, and so we want to make sure that we keep our corners in, make sure that our jaw is flat. We want to make sure that we don't puff our cheeks and that our top teeth are resting on the mouthpiece. So I like to make the shape like we're saying the letter O. O. And by making that shape, my corners are in and my jaw is flat. As I set the instrument in my mouth, O, I want to make sure that my bottom lip and teeth are never touching the reed and pushing the reed together. So my pressure is from the corner. O. And again, top teeth on the mouthpiece, thinking pressure from the corner, not pressure from the top and bottom. If you don't get a sound right away, there's two things to double check. One thing is make sure that you're not taking too much of the mouthpiece in your mouth, and that sometimes causes a high squeak. And the other thing is making sure that your bottom teeth aren't resting and touching the reed this way as well. So once again, top teeth on the mouthpiece, corners in, keeping that very round shape. Now it's time to take our instrument apart. The first thing that we do is loosen the screws on our ligature. And once that is loose, then that allows our reed to come up. And we take our reed, and again, we want to make sure that we use real good care. The flat part of the reed, the part that had the numbers on the back, fits down onto the reed holder, and we gently push that in. Then we take the ligature off and set that aside. In our case, you will find a swab, a cleaner. This one happens to be made out of leather, chamois. There are also ones made out of felt and also made out of cloth. Any of these work just great. All of them will have a weight on the end. And this weight on the end will be the thing that you can drop down through the bell of the instrument. So turn the clarinet over, drop the weight down, and then before you set it all the way through, you want to make sure that this is open so that you unfold the cloth or unfold the felt or chamois. Then once that's through like that, you'll notice that it comes out the bottom, and then you just pull it through. I usually do that a couple times just to make sure that any moisture that I've got in the instrument I can take out. And drop it through. And then I set that aside. And I start from the bottom. I take the bell off first. And I set that into my case. Then again, remember the two parts that were connected by the bridge key. We have to open the bridge in order to get that bottom section off. So again, I go to these two rings right here, push those down, which raises our bridge right here. And then very gently, I just twist that with just slight motions from side to side. And then that's correct. Now, there are two sections in our case here that this could fit into. We want to pick the largest one because this is the longest section, and it's formed right to that instrument. The keys are always up at that point. Then I would hold on to the barrel, screw the next section off, and then set that again with keys up into our section there. The barrel is our next part that comes apart. And we set that down in the section. Now I reach for my ligature. Again, I put the screws so that they are on the front of the table. I tighten down those screws slightly. Take my mouthpiece cap, put that on, set that in there. I'll take my reeds. This case doesn't have a really great spot to put my reeds, so I usually keep my reeds in the case, and I just store them in the bell, and that seems to work out just fine. Then I take my swab, I fold my swab, and I wrap the cord with the weight around it. And I put it in the case. Make sure you don't store it in a bag at all. You just want to make sure, because it is slightly damp there. And then I want to close the case. Make sure that the case is latched. And again, when you're done playing, always make sure that you take the time to put your instrument, take your instrument apart, clean it properly, put it in the case, and then you can set it in a safe place where nobody will be disturbing that instrument. And now you're ready for the next time you can practice.